Welcome back to another episode of More People, More Problems with Brittany, myself, and Chelsea, my wonderful co host. So, as usual, we're going to get into some fun topics today. Well, one fun topic, I should say. But before we do that, just a disclaimer that the thoughts of what we talk about during this podcast are that of our own and no one else's. We won't really go into any details that are confidential about anyone else other than ourselves. We're going to give you all the goods, hopefully, and continue to do that. And actually, one more thing, because I don't know if we said it on the last one or last few. If you guys are engaged, if you're liking this podcast, don't forget to like it, comment. We want to talk to you. After our break, we really realized that part of the beauty of the podcast was to create the community and really get engaged with people. So definitely jump in and share your thoughts and share with friends. But Chelsea, what are we talking about today?
Well, first off, I have to say, Britt, you're bringing a lot of energy to this episode, and it leads us right into our topic, which is all about energy givers versus energy takers,
Right?
aka the dreaded energy vampire that we have referenced previously in a few episodes. But I think we got to dig into this a little bit.
I
So,
know.
so Britt, what is an energy vampire to you?
Energy vampire to me is someone that around you just sucks all of the energy out of the room. It's someone that generally probably plays the victim, that it's all about them, that you walk away feeling like you just, like literally a vampire, got sucked the life out, and you're like, I have nothing else to give. On
Mhm.
a personal front, I think it's like, we all have those friends where you go and you feel like, okay, I'll hang out with them again because I feel bad. You do that and you leave it going, I got nothing out of that. There was no positive for me. It was all give, give, give. And I actually feel more exhausted after that conversation rather than like charged up and ready to go. And I mean, put that against the best friends or friends that we all have that just literally charge you up. You do that. It's like you can really start to see the difference between someone who sucks the life out of the room and out of the conversation and someone who really just adds to it and gives back and really, yeah, an energy giver.
An energy giver. So, absolutely, those energy takers, those vampires,
Yeah.
they're a glass half empty type of person, right? It this kind of rolls into our change and our change management discussion we've had on a previous podcast too. Super resistant to change. Everything sucks. They're probably really negative. They're calling you, say you're getting a little, Teams call or a Zoom call, and you see it pop up, and you're like, "Oh, no. That's the last thing I want. That's the last
That's a
person I wanna
signal.
speak
That's
to
a
right
signal.
now. That's the signal. I wanna reject that phone call right now," because you know it's gonna be difficult, right? Whereas your energy givers are going to be ones who are giving back, they're coming at it with positivity, they're a glass half full. They're looking for solutions, like, they're looking to make better, they're looking to support, they're adding value, right? They're adding value
Yeah.
wherever they go, and you're just feeding off of that, and that's also gonna feed your own energy levels, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like I think, we're jumping into the difference, which is great for people to really ground themselves in energy vampire, which is like energy takers versus energy givers. But I think we should talk about why that's important because I think in life, let's just talk about the personal side. You want people that give and take, but they need to give just as much as they take because relationships are hard and sometimes they do take it, but more often than not, they're giving you, they're charging you up, they're, supporting you in moments of challenge. And I think that that creates, the village around you and a healthy flow of balance that we all need. And in the workplace, I think you got to be even more intense about that because you're paying them. They're not just a friend, they are someone that's employed by the company. And I think for that, you can't have people that take energy away. And I think that if you want to create that A class team with all A players that really has extreme impact, you need to really seek out the energy givers and get rid, like fire their asses, the energy vampires. They're toxic.
Often toxic, often resistant to change. They're
Yeah.
taking away from situations. They're not solutions oriented. They're focused on the problem and just like commiserating.
Yeah.
Like just like
Do you think
shit,
energy
this sucks.
takers like vampires are very much, that victim mentality of poor me, it's everyone else's fault, it's never my fault, very self-centered probably. Like I do think that's at the core of
Narcissistic.
it. Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you think that's true? Is that extreme or do you think
I don't know that it
fair?
is. I think there are people who are narcissistic, and like I would class them as energy vampires. There are people who are energy vampires, and I don't think you're just always necessarily an energy vampire. The one or two
Oh,
people that come.
interesting. You don't think you are?
No, because I think that one or two people come to mind, and these are personal scenarios,
Yeah.
personal relationships where I'm like, I don't think that person's ever been like a contributor to a relationship. So
Yeah.
there's possibility. But I do think people can be energy vampires at different points in their lives. And I think I've talked about this before, depending on your mental state, where
Yeah.
you're at, how are you looking at, like, what is your perspective on things? So how are you coming at certain scenarios? I think I've definitely, if I look back at some situations with work, like years back when being in a toxic work environment,
Yeah.
probably struggling like postpartum and all these things, for sure, a lot of what I would bring to the table at times would be that kind of negativity and this is tough and like why are we doing this and like and just have that aura of possible like commiseration to it versus I look at a lot of like where I'm at right now in my own mental state in my own mental health
Yeah.
as well. And of course I've had to evolve as a person and into a leader where you can't just be Debbie Downer all the time and like this sucks. Like you're obviously probably not going to go that far if you're that really annoyingly like
Just ultra
taker,
negative and
ultra
yeah.
negative, like, taker of life energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I definitely think it could ebb and flow, like, people can have moments of being energy takers because there are gonna be times in
So
your life where you are self-involved in
yeah.
what's going on with you, and how is that showing up at work too.
I think you hit on a really important point is I don't think it's binary. I don't think you're either or. You're not an energy giver or energy vampire. I think it's a spectrum. And I think there is like a subset of that are energy vampires. I think there's a subset that sway in between. And then I think there's a subset that are probably energy givers. And I don't think the extremes are good on both sides because to me, that's either all on the energy vampire side where I think it's that emotional drain and you're not giving back. But even the emotional givers, I probably lied more so on that extreme. And that wasn't unhealthy for me as well because I was always supporting everyone else, but I was never asking for help. I was never getting it back or like you were asking for it. And so as a result, everyone was probably happy around me, but I was exhausted and annoyed
Yeah.
and resentful and all these
You're
things.
giving so much
Yeah.
and it might be that not that you're not getting anything back, but it's just like your level of giving is so extreme versus somewhere
You wanna
else.
be in that middle,
You wanna be somewhere in the middle, and of course,
more so
again,
energy
like,
giver.
I think there's a spectrum, as we've talked about many things, you're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Hopefully, you sway most of your time towards being a giver,
yeah,
and, of course, like we've talked about with A players before, hyper focused on growth, development, personal, professional, all that nature, you're going to attract people who want to do that as well, like who want to grow and develop and to be better.
yeah.
And so they are likely energy givers. Like they're focused on solutions. They're coming to the table with options. They're not just shooting everything down at first pass, going, no,
Yeah,
that's
like,
crap.
you're thinking like, let's be really blunt here because I actually think this is probably very tangible for anyone listening. It's like, okay, we've talked lightly about energy vampire versus energy giver, but what does that mean? How does that show up? Because I think you just gave 2 examples that are great. Like, so to me, energy giver, like you just said, a player who wants to push you as much as they push themselves. And so when you work together, you're at the same like level of technical expertise or deep knowledge that you're going together and you're just, building each other up. And like, I mean, I think we've all been there. It's like reminds me of university days. Like the energy takers when you get stuck with someone and you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to do the whole project. And they're not gonna do
Oh,
anything. And to help them even get done, I'm gonna have to give more. I wish I was just doing it alone. To me, that's like energy vampire. It's like, oh, it's gonna take so much. Energy takers are always like, okay, Brett, you've been paired up with Chelsea. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, like this is gonna be amazing. She's gonna push me to be better. We're gonna have an even better idea. And it's like the simplest term, A player and A players teaming up versus like a C or D trying, that would be the taker. But the other one you said is the solving of the problem. I think you're right. Like energy givers, you ask them or there's a gap and they solve it. And energy takers, they come back to you with the same or worse problem. Do you have an example of that?
The same or worse problem. I think I can't think of it, like, a really, really specific example right now, and if you have one, go ahead and jump in, but I think in terms of the energy giver, like, they're focused towards the solution. So they want to provide solutions and they want to work through it. So they've accepted whatever the problem is or the issue, whatever the case may be, and they're willing and enthusiastic about moving past it and figuring it out. And then in a very general sense, your energy vampire is going to be stuck on the problem or the
Yeah.
issue and dwell on that constantly, and they're either, like you said, they're either going to bring back more issues or like more negative questions that still aren't going to get you any farther. It's just going to be like,
Well, this
okay,
person
so
over here couldn't help me, so now it's I literally have had so many examples. Like, there was someone on my team that would come to me, and she would come to me and be like, "Hey, I noticed there's a gap here," or, "Hey, there's an issue we need to figure out. I've already started working on it, but I just wanted to loop you in, and here's where I'm at. Let me know if you have thoughts," and it'd be half solved. And I was like,
yeah,
"You are amazing. Like,
yeah,
you are
that's
so
fair.
good." Whereas the other side, it's like, "Okay, I knew there was a problem pick your poison of the talent realm. It's like we're not hiring fast enough. I see it. I'm like, okay, we need to rebuild the process of how like the funnel of people coming in and how we interview. So I give it to someone and then they come back and they're like, well, I started to look at it, but then I realized if we solve this, da, da, da. They spider web it out. There's 15
Mm,
million things. Then they involve 10 more people and they're like, but they're not doing their work. So we kind of need you to come in and get them all aligned again. And I'm like, how did you take something that was this big
yeah,
and now make it 10 times bigger and not even solve any of it. To me,
yeah,
that's an energy vampire where you're like, "Fuck, I wish I just got it going myself." And that's not the answer. It's
no,
get that person either back engaged in the right way or else get them out.
or get them out. So I think that's correct. I think that they can make things even worse, even bigger, and then it
Yeah.
spider webs. And then I think also that they can just get stuck. Like, I ran into this issue and like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, you're employed and you're making X amount of dollars every year. Have you had any thoughts on, like, before you even came to me, have you had any thoughts on what some possible options are? And if you have, can you break them out into risk and reward, and then we can figure it out from there? It's
Yeah.
like the people take the problem and just throw it back at you.
Yeah. And
This is hard. Like, you
it
take
makes
it.
me realize it's not, a seniority thing. Like, let's not get this mixed up with someone really junior who just doesn't know how to solve a problem or
Yeah.
someone who doesn't know how to think strategically that you need to teach and learn. That's not what we're talking about here. It's someone that should know, that has done it before, that is choosing not to, that is a repeatable behavior. And to me, that is that energy vampire.
Well,
There's
totally agree
yeah,
because I mean, I have a lot of really junior employees who clearly have a very, very bright future, and
yeah,
they come to me with better scenarios and better problem solving abilities than people that I've had on the team who have way more years of experience.
yeah,
And I go like, "How are you stuck right now? How are you stuck on this right now?" And it's come back to me. And I've got someone who's only been in for X amount of time who's motivated and who's thinking outside the box and they're being creative about it. So,
you're not
um,
making it
and
all about them.
and they're also bringing a positive attitude to it. And I think a positivity is going to be a big part to play in that kind of energy giver.
Yeah,
And I think especially like as a leader, you need to ask yourself, am I an energy giver or am I an energy taker, right? Obviously, you want to be more on the giver side because you want that to be um contagious, like, right? You
yeah.
wanna you wanna attract those
You wanna lead
energy.
by example, you're
You wanna
totally right.
you wanna lead by example, and I think a couple of questions you can ask yourself is, um are you bringing positivity to your work, to your role? Okay, so like, and that's going to be contagious for other people. So, and I don't mean toxic positivity where just like everything's great and everything's amazing and like it's going to be fine. Like, that's toxic positivity. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is a general level of enthusiasm and positivity that's going to spur that same type of feeling in other people. It's going to be contagious. They're going to want to get involved. Like, she's
Don't you
working through
think
this,
that's
Imma work
like
through this.
that's such an important part of, like, every aspect of life. Like, I think
Everything.
about if you came over to my house and you were like, "Yeah, so I gotta plan a birthday party for my husband, it's gonna be shit, and, like, can we do it at your house? And, I mean, I really don't wanna do it, I wish he wasn't even turning 40," and you know what I mean? Like, to me, that's like, "Oh my god, drain the life out of the room." Whereas, like, positivity, like, "Hey, my husband's turning 40, like, it's gonna be a blast, like, do you wanna plan this party with me? Like, we're gonna have so much fun." And we're gonna do this and like think about optimistic. Like to me, it seems so evident,
Like, you
but
wanna get in it.
sadly, it's not. Like I just experienced too many people on the other side. So I think you're spot on. Just a
Yeah.
little real life example, you know?
I'm like, "Oh, thank God this will get aired after Gary's 40th
I
birthday,
know. I thought
obviously,
about
so we're
that.
allowed to say it so long as, like,
Yeah.
he's not gonna hear us now." So I think, yeah, so how much positivity are you bringing in as a leader?
Yeah.
Okay, how visible are you as well? Like, I think being an energy giver is also about giving of yourself. So, I've talked about this before, we're half in the office, half at home. When I'm in the office, I do my rounds. I go around, I have a little chat
Do
with
my
everyone.
rounds.
I do my rounds. How was your weekend? Talk about things that are going on with them. I remember shit that's going on with
Yeah.
them, obviously. I make sure I'm visible, right? So, like, and a compliment or comment I get really often is, you're always in such a great mood. And, like, even when we were dealing with this really, really difficult situation, but you still seemed calm, cool, and collected, you still looked at it on the bright side, that we were going to work through this regardless. You didn't get negative and down, which would have affected all of our moods. So for me, like an element of visibility is really, really important to ensure that, as an energy giver, you're possibly influencing that in others. And then, just as like a final piece on the energy giver front, it would be asking people about themselves and, like, getting them to give as well. So it's not all about me talking all the time and, like, I'm this and I'm that and I had an amazing weekend and I did that and then, okay, bye. Like, it's also about, like, what'd you do this weekend? What did you get up to this weekend? And allowing people to talk about themselves too and to share about themselves, that makes people feel good. Like, psychologically,
Yeah.
people want to share and want to feel like you're interested in them as well. So I think those are a few just little tangible tips that, like, I bring to the table as a leader, going, how can I be an energy giver and how can I encourage the people around me to give as well and then to feel good, which is all, of course, like we say all the time, which is going to help them to, work harder. We're all going to be more aligned. They're going to be likely more productive. They're going to trust me. They're going to
Yeah.
trust me as their leader, and trust is the key to all of the things.
I
Like,
know. And I think what you're saying is, it's really the combination of those 3 aspects of being positive and seeing the optimistic side, being visible and caring for your people. It's the willingness to listen and care for people and show that, because to me, that's the opposite of an energy vampire, which is people sucking all of that out
yeah,
from people that want to and
yeah, it's
not
all about
actually.
you.
Yeah, so I think that's really, really critical. I think that there's, like, the care side, and then there's even the work side, and I think the commonality of an energy vampire is that in both of those things, it's never about them, but it's always about them, as in, like, I think an energy giver pushes you to be better by doing the things you just talked about and by challenging your people and challenging your peers, whereas an energy vampire makes you resentful for your worth because you're doing better, and they're like, "Well, I can't possibly do that." So it's the individuality of, like, it's never my fault, but it's always around me, and so I think that's an interesting one that also then goes to, like, I think a lot about the people that I feel like sucked out the room, and it was around people that couldn't get outside of themselves when asking questions or by, like, taking on workloads. It was always poor me, it was always the victim mentality. It was when given direction, instead of asking great questions like, you know, considering a new perspective or gaining new clarity or how can I support you that's going to get this done, it was more so like, let's talk in circles so that I can make myself feel better, and you're like, I'm just exhausted by this point, or like repeating back what they're saying and then like doing it with a way that's like, well, your answer isn't good enough, so change it. Like, I just think there's such an interesting individual selfishness that just wants to suck it up and will thrive off people that are willing to give it, if that makes sense. I feel like I rambled there, but
No, I
hopefully.
don't think you ramble. I think they're all valid points. And I think, like I said, we can have moments of being energy takers. And I think we definitely can evolve and understand and grow to become energy givers. And I think there's a lot of reflection that has to go into this because, like, when I was looking up and thinking about this episode, I was like, there are definitely times when I've been a taker and I've been that negative Nelly. No offense to anyone whose name is Nelly. Um, and when I look back on that, I can see how I influenced various situations or how I may have come off to my colleagues or my leads and whatnot. And now I reflect back as being a leader now and where I'm, you know, faced with those types of situations, those types of individuals, and how exhausting it is and how unproductive it is when we have people who just are not there to grow and to learn and to support and to make good of various situations because not all are going to be good. Some of them just are going to be shit.
But I think that like when I hear you say that, I feel like you're being so like hard on yourself because we all deserve to have days or moments where we are feeling down and need extra support and need to take from those around us that care for us, their emotional stability and, like I said, support. But I think the difference is their moments and then you give back. So it's a give and take. It's a two-way street.
Fair.
Whereas this extreme of energy vampire or just takers in general,
Consistent.
it's consistent. It's always a one way. It's a repeatable behavior and situation of I need you to support me and pour me and how are you
All the
gonna
time.
make it better for me? Um and I
Yeah.
mean, it, like, as a leader, as a friend, or as a peer, when you leave a room and you're like, I expected that person to do that energy taking, and then they did, and it wasn't a surprise. And you think about it and you're like, do I really want to like put more into that relationship? And you're like, no, because it's always like this. To me, that's when you classify it. You put the little name tag on it and
Right.
you're like, okay, now you got to do something about it.
I know, and we're both probably thinking of a personal situation with a former friend and whatnot, where we would definitely class as an energy vampire that just no longer is a friendship in our
Yeah.
lives anymore because it there was no give back. It was always take, take, take.
No.
And when you're not getting anything slash and you're giving everything of yourself to that relationship, again, like this can happen in your personal life. It can
Yeah.
happen with family, friends, whatever, coworkers, bosses.
Well, and I think actually people that like to give and care for people, like talking about, I don't know if anyone here, I know some people will know this, but Enneagram, I'm a type 2 caregiver. Like I want to give my heart and take care of everyone. So I'm actually extremely susceptible to these energy vampires because I feel like they're like a problem I can solve. I feel like I can take care of them. I feel like I have the emotional capacity to support them, and so I can almost get too excited about that relationship at first, and then it
Yeah.
drains me to a point. And so I would also just say to anyone listening, like, think about how you show up, where you give and take yourself, and then put it in the frame of mind with others because
Mhm.
it's going to show up differently for all. And you won't be able to classify it. And sometimes it can be just confusing. It can be misdiagnosed in the beginning because you feel great because you're giving so much and supporting, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Shit, that's not good. I keep having to do that, and it's never changing."
No. And like, so what do you think in terms of energy givers, energy takers, like career progression? Like, what do you think about like, can you see an energy taker going really far? Like, and becoming a leader? Like,
No. No, I can't.
expand, elaborate on that. Like for me, like,
I
okay.
guess yeah, well, share your thoughts because I
Well, I
feel
was
like you
gonna
have some.
so that's why I like if you're a consistent energy taker, yeah, probably not because that's a consistent pattern you're always going to be remembered for. I mean, I know people now who I feel like they're definitely energy takers, they're vampires, they're draining you, But they must not have always been like that if they're into some senior leadership roles. I'm like, I
I
how
think
did that happen, you know?
so we're talking about the spectrum again. I think on extremes, I think the extreme cannot progress, or else they do, it's very lucky. And it was probably a mistake because someone couldn't have a real conversation or actually
Right.
lead that. Um, because I just think that when you're that fulfilled with taking and sucking it all out, both on a performance level, on an emotional level, on a contribution level. Like, I'm just like, how does that add up to them progress in a career? It shouldn't. Like, so there's a faulty moment in the matrix. But you
Right.
know what I mean? Like there's something there that shouldn't have been. Whereas if it's on a spectrum, like I mean, that's probably the saddest, right? Like seeing someone that you know was wonderful at one point and then be in a really negative space and have a sustained energy taking career of, a certain like 2 years. Well, hopefully they can get out of it and hopefully you can have a conversation
Yeah.
and paint them not paint them, but drive them back to like a different way.
Yeah, so okay, so that brings me 2 things. Energy givers, like, I'll always remember those energy givers, right? So I think that, those are the folks who are positive, you get along with them really well, they
They
show up,
contribute a
they
lot, they add value.
contribute, they add value, right? So I can see how, like, that progression can happen, and they'll be remembered. Those people will
Yeah.
be remembered, right? They'll be remembered for finding the
And
solutions
on the
and getting
other
out there.
extreme, the energy vampires will be remembered too. Like I can think talking about confidentiality on the beginning of this pod, like I will not say, but there is a few that I could name, that I'm like, I'll never work with them again if it's my choice.
100%, and I could say the same thing as well, and, those are other scenarios to deal with, but then how do we deal with the energy vampires? Like, okay, we're having a conversation with them, but what would be a productive conversation to have with to say to someone, "Listen, you're really killing the mood every time we're in a meeting." Like, what would your and have you actually had to do that before with an energy vampire? Have you actually had to full on address a situation
Yeah, but
where someone's constantly showing up?
I don't think we had it classified as like you're an energy vampire. We never said that. It was like later on that we found that term and then we were like, that's good.
Yeah.
But I think, well, I know I've had conversations, which is, every group discussion you come to, you make it about yourself instead of looking at the bigger picture and centering it around the company. You are constantly bringing negativity. You are creating more work rather than less. Like you need to work smarter and here's a way to do it. I think every energy vampire to the extreme I've encountered, I've always given them the benefit of the doubt in the beginning because you hired them for a reason and try and work on it. But when it's a proven track record and it's multiple, I think that like ultimately that's when you have to terminate someone.
Yeah.
Like that just is what it is. And if you see progression and they move out of it, then I don't think they're that extreme. Like I
It's a fair
think that
point.
they're in the spectrum and it's like, okay, let's have a like let's have a come to Jesus moment and talk about how right now you're not at your best and how I want to support you, but I'm going to support you if you're willing to do the work yourself. If you're willing to take accountability, if you're willing to show up in a new way with a little bit more positivity, ownership and accountability, then like I will meet you where you are. But I think the difference between that and the change and evolution is that on the extreme, you can't even get to that point because it's always
It
sucking it out.
it might not ever change and,
Yeah.
they're too far gone possibly. So I think that important, like you said, having those conversations, probably a one-on-one conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
It's not something to be addressed in the group setting,
Yeah.
like, "Listen,
Imagine
Sally."
that. You're
Yeah,
like even I just think about like a wine night with girlfriends and you're like, "So Chelsea, you've really been an energy vampire lately? You're just sucking the life out of everyone."
yeah,
It's like, what's a sure better way to make someone defensive?
yeah, and
Like,
embarrassed
yeah,
and, like,
exactly. No,
just
it's
like, "You're
not.
just a total fucking
Yeah.
drain to have around," and, like, "Yeah, we're not interested in hanging with you until you, like, level up a little
Yeah.
bit," you know what I mean? Bring something to
Contribute.
the
Yeah.
table. So, yeah, so maybe some encouragement not to do that in a group setting or in the moment
Yeah.
when this situation is happening. I think like many things, they should all be thought out a little bit, then addressed afterwards on a one-to-one setting. It should be a continuous check-in as well. I like what you said about, "I'll meet you here." but you have some work to do. You got to get there too. Okay. So this is how far I'm willing to go. You need to get up there. I'm not going to meet you all the way down there. You got to put some fucking effort in because
Yeah.
you're the one who's the vampire here, like,
Yeah.
but like, and obviously don't call anyone an energy vampire. I
Well,
just
I
like
mean,
don't
choose
think.
your language. If it's in the company culture, go for it. But if it's not,
Sure.
it's something new that you're introducing, you might freak them out.
So you're a
Um,
straight up energy vampire, and we're gonna have to figure this out. No, like, I mean, yeah, if it's in your culture to use that terminology, or if that's well known, I think obviously probably explaining around, like, so here's what I'm seeing.
yeah.
Here's what I'm
I mean,
seeing
like
and
we know,
reading.
like self-awareness is hard. We have so many tactics as humans to avoid the truth because it hurts. So like self-awareness is hard. So in that case, I think as a leader or as a friend, any relationship you have that has, subsequent like content to it, like if you really are in it, then you deserve, they deserve to have the conversation to say, here's where we're at. Do you realize that as well? If they are ignorant to it completely, that's when I don't have a tolerance to really work at it.
Hmm.
And that's when I don't have a tolerance to be like,
So I
there's
don't
no give
know.
back.
I don't know. I'm gonna jump in on that.
Yeah, love it.
I
Disagree.
need people to self reflect 100%. I've definitely been in scenarios before where there's been some obliviousness maybe on my end to something I was doing and I didn't realize. So I think that, yeah, we all need to have the ability to self-reflect, and that's how we make good decisions and we make
Yeah.
improvements and we grow and whatnot. But I do want to allow some leeway for someone to become aware of the impact of their behavior or their words or whatever the case may be, and at least give them the time to self-reflect on that and make improvements. I wouldn't want to write them off right away in that, like, what, you have no idea? Like, this is fuck, you're
No,
probably
I think you're
fired,
right. I'm not saying that, but I think when you're in conversation, if I say to like if I came to you, Chelsea, and was like, our relationship the past few months, I feel like I have given everything. Anytime you called, I showed up. Anytime you needed something, I supported you. And when I've asked the same of you, you've put it back on me and made me feel guilty for it, or you haven't shown up. Like to me, that's like a very real conversation that embattles it. If you just say like, "Fuck that, you're out to lunch," like, that's not the case, I would be like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
I mean,
that
that's
is."
bringing a lot of negativity back and
But
then
there's no
pushing it on you.
accountability, like, in
No
real terms,
accountability.
no accountability, there's no, like, want to resolve.
Right.
There's no care given back in that moment. There's over defensiveness,
Yep.
which I have more tolerance for because it's hard to get feedback. But like to me, that's maybe an extreme example of I am gonna write you off if that's really what it is. But if
100%.
it's like, oh, I don't see it, let me reflect. Oh gosh, I'm gonna give you a week to think about it and then we'll have another conversation.
Well, yeah, and so okay, so thanks for explaining that a little bit further. Makes perfect sense. Agree 100%. I might come back to you as Chelsea in the relationship and be like, "Oh my god, Britt, like I didn't even realize I was
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, it's been a rough 2 months and I didn't realize my attitude was rubbing off on everyone and I'm not giving you enough. I just want to think about this for a little bit. And I'm obviously invested in our relationship and I want
Yeah.
to come back to the table as like an equal kind of partner in this relationship that we have together. So like,
But this is the difference, right, in itself of energy giver versus taker. That response, I would be like, she gets it. There's like an acknowledgement, there's an accountability, there's a listening, there's like, I'm not the victim. Whereas I think that this describes those two different lenses because the other one is like, well, that's on you. Like, I've had people be
that's so true.
like
Come full
you,
circle
like,
here.
if you want more, like, do more yourself. It's like, it's nothing to do with me. That's an energy vampire. And you're
Yeah.
like, spot them. Realize how toxic they are to your teams at work,
Yeah.
in your relationships, in your personal life, and get rid of them. Like, to me, this is the beauty. I was just talking to my friend Lee, who's in town, and we were talking about like being in our 30s and how beautiful it is because I think you have more confidence, you know yourself better, and you kind of have like some friend cleanses that you don't, need. And I feel like I've gotten rid of a few of these energy vampires that I'm like, they don't serve me in any kind of way. And so, like, goodbye. I just like don't have the bandwidth for it and it's toxic. Like it just spreads.
It's so true, and I think that exactly, as you hit your 30s and maybe, like, that keeps going, maybe that keeps like,
Yeah.
as you hit your
I think
40s,
it
as you
probably
hit your
does.
50, you continue to cleanse until you really, really know yourself the most,
Yeah.
and you know exactly what you wanna have around you, whereas I think a lot of us when we're in our when you're in your teens, you just want everyone around you, like, you used to collect people, like, you
Oh,
collect
yeah.
people like fucking pennies, you know?
Or
Were
even
any of them
time.
bringing most of them bringing anything to the table? Probably not, but, like, it was great to have a lot of friends, right? 20s, yeah, similar, partying, you're starting to get to know yourself a little bit more, but then you're starting to think about, like, you giving me anything back in this? Like, kinda not, like, really interested in making plans with you. I'll kind of focus more on the ones that are kind of giving me a little bit of impact, giving me
Yeah.
something back. And then I think you just become so much well, I hope people evolve that they become so confident in themselves later on in life that they know exactly what they want to get out of their relationships, whether it's work-wise, personal. Like, I'll think of the same when I go and hire people. I'm obviously not gonna pull out, like, a resume of someone that I know that is Mr. Depresso, who always fights on everything I do, who brings a negative attitude to everything, who's so focused on themselves that they can't focus on what's best for the
Yeah.
organization. Remember, you're getting paid, you're an employee,
Yeah.
it is what's best for the organization. We've talked about this.
I
Clearly,
think
I'm not gonna reach for those people.
no, exactly, and I think, like, the moral of the story here is be picky with who you surround yourself with because it's a representation of you. So in your personal life, I think as you mature and gain wisdom at whatever age, you start to really realize who you wanna be around and how that rubs off on you. I know in my 20s, I just wanted someone to go drinking with me. I didn't care if they, like, sucked the
Yeah,
energy out or not. I was like,
here
"I
for
got
a
a
good
friend."
time.
Yeah. Exactly, whereas, like, in my 30s, I'm like, it's actually more so the Sundays afternoons at my house that I wanna hang out. Like, I'll
The
drink
chats
wine
and
with whoever, like, that's not like no, it's intentional. So
yeah.
and I think at work, when you're at a point of growth or you have an open role or you need something done, sometimes you become less picky because the demand is so big, and I think that's where it gets dangerous, and you could plop in an energy vampire
Just
that has
anyone.
really negative effects, and short term, you think you're solving it,
Yeah.
and you're not. So be mindful of that and really be picky about who you surround yourself with.
And then I think that lends itself, and we'll go into this at another point, is like recruiting and hiring the right fit, the right
Yeah.
talent for jobs. You're not just putting a body in just to give them a paycheck and just hope it all works out well.
Yeah, that's
No, you
bullshit.
really want to get the right people who are going to deliver and have that impact. So you have to be intentional about it. So be intentional about it. And it's like I said, in previous episodes, downsizing or, relooking at your structure at work. Yeah, it might be with less people, but make sure they're the right fucking people because you can have just as much, if not more impact when you have the right players at the table. And I think that goes for energy givers, energy takers.
Yeah.
Steer clear of them energy fucking takers because you need not apply.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Fire those asses, just get aggressive. But no, I mean, that's funny, but, like, be picky. Be
Be
picky
picky.
around who you surround yourself with. I think that's it. And on that note, let's be picky and choose each other to have wine with.
Let's do it.
Okay, be right back. Okay, folks, we are back with one of my favorite cocktails. We decided to stray away from the
Woo.
wine.
Yeah.
Today, we have a
A
margarita.
margarita.
Oh, I
Yum.
love a margarita. So, in today's margarita, we used a mezcal, tequila, Casamigos, mezcal. I'm obsessed with this, so I'm gonna give this a really good review. Chelsea, she might give you the other side of the review, but this actual mezcal, going back to our famous people, George Clooney and some other guy. Claude or Rode Oben. I think it's, that model with, Cindy Crawford. I think it's her husband that
Oh,
went in it with George Clooney, if I'm not mistaken. But, Casamigos, whether you do the mezcal or, like, the other versions of the tequila, I find them really good.
yeah.
They're pricey somewhat, but not really compared to other good high-scale tequilas, and I just love the taste of it. Mezcal is a unique one. It's smoky, it's almost like a scotchy flavor of tequila, which
Mm.
I love because there's so much dimension to it. It's just unreal. And in a margarita, it adds Yeah, like this
Like a
smoky.
lot of depth to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking unreal. So, I would give it a 10 out of 10. That's my honest, you know, assertion. But Chels, what would you give it?
Now, we know how I feel about mezcal. I'm not crazy. I love Casamigos. I love it. I listen. I'm not a crazy tequila fan, regardless, but I like Casamigos. The mezcal, I'm not as much of a fan of the smokiness.
Feel like
Like,
you either like it or you don't. It's a
yeah, I
very,
know.
like, divisive.
And it's also probably because often you'll mix that to make like a spicy marg or something.
Yeah, love
And
me a
I'm not as
spicy.
much of a spicy type of person, though I'm getting better with it, I will say.
No,
So
debatable.
I won't give it, I mean, I'm not going to give it a 10. There's nothing against the tequila. It's just not what I would lean towards. I would probably go more towards a 6.5.
Oh,
But it's
wow,
just
quite
because
a
it's
drop.
well, it's just not my taste. Like if it was the Casamigos and it was just in like a regular, type of marg, that like your old traditional basic Betty margarita with the Casamigos, I'd probably lean a little bit higher. Again, I'm not a massive tequila fan.
No,
You know
I'm
that meme I was sending you guys on the tequila?
yeah.
Remember that? Like,
No, I don't actually.
oh, didn't I send you on Instagram
I
that
know,
one
Chelsea's
meme?
been really into the memes on Instagram
Yeah,
lately.
I
She
know.
sends me, like her and Katie send me them all the time. I never send them back because 'cause
It's
I'm
all
just
we
not
do.
finding them, but I always laugh at them. I love them.
Oh, they're all over my feed because that's all I do is send people memes now.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a girl like outside of a bar in the alley going like, "Oh, I thought it was a lemon drop. I didn't realize it was tequila." Like, like she'd just taken a shot of tequila and
That's
like
actually you. That's
chokes on the
literally you.
words. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's just like I died because you guys know how I feel about tequila
yeah.
and how difficult it is for me to take tequila shots. So I'm getting better. We
You are
all have
better. Your
different.
favorite tequila is more of like a blanco. Like, you
Yeah,
just like the
it's
clear
true.
light. Yeah, I like more of the dimensions to it. I don't like all mezcals though. There's like a bunch I've tried that I'm like, "No, it's too much." This one's my favorite. I highly recommend people trying it anyways to see. I think it's good.
Next time or on another episode, we should do a review with the 818.
Yeah, we can. I find that one overly vanilla.
It is really vanilla, but I wonder what type of drink, because I wouldn't put that in a margarita or anything.
It'd be too vanilla for me
So
too in a
what could
margarita.
we look up? We should look
You
up like,
probably would do it with soda or something.
oh yeah, tequila and soda. We could
Yeah,
probably do that. But yeah, that's a different one. That's definitely not
yeah,
not your traditional type of, and neither is the mezcal, but like,
yeah. I don't like the more vanilla-y ones. I find them but that's like a personal preference, you
yeah.
know?
So anywho,
Okay, so side note, I see you wearing your Barbie shirt. Have you seen the movie yet?
I actually haven't gone to see it yet. I was kind of gonna go this week and then it just didn't work out, so I haven't gone. I've heard some people saying it's life changing, which I mean, is it really?
Like,
Come
what
on.
movie
I
is
I
ever
mean
life-changing? I don't know. That
I
seems
I
like
mean, I
such
don't
an
know.
aggressive.
Just Barbie. Um, I really like the shirts, like a little, cut
You're
off,
right
like
into
a
the
crop top.
clothing vibe, but not that I saw the movie,
Yeah.
and people might hate me for this, but I mean, I saw it, I enjoyed it, I thought it was a little cheesy at times. I wouldn't watch it again. I thought there's really good messages in it, so I think it's really nice for women, young girls. I think that's really great. I just thought I think because everyone had such a hype about it, I was so excited, and it just didn't live up. I don't know if I would
Okay.
have felt that same way if I didn't hear all the hype, it might not have,
Maybe.
you
Maybe
know?
not.
But, like, compared to other things, like, we were just talking the other day about, The Summer I Turned Pretty. Like, can't w that hype is good, and it's a fucking great show.
It's such a good show. I'm, like, on the edge of my seat every time an
So
episode is
cute.
released. I
Yeah,
got the benefit, though, of binge watching the 1st season
yeah.
because I didn't, like, really I'm sure one of you had mentioned it to me at some point last
Me and
year or
Sarah have
whatever,
talked about it a bunch, and
and
Katie
I
too,
guess
so
I just, like, didn't, like, clue
you
in
missed
or
the boat.
whatever, but then when you guys, like, revived the conversation here this summer as, like, the 2nd season was coming out, I was like, "Oh," and I, like, binge watched the 1st season. Of course, 8 episodes, so annoying, like,
Yeah, I
can't you
know.
just make, like, 20? Like, and then there's 8, and then you realize that was the finale. I'm like, "What?"
And you're just bawling.
Oh, yeah, oh my
Oh,
god.
yeah, I
Like, it
cried
really
hard, like,
it
one of
hit me.
those like, couldn't
Yeah,
catch my breath because I was
yeah,
crying so hard,
I
yeah.
hear you.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what's with Amazon? They get you to go on the streaming platforms because you can literally binge everything. So they're like, "Come over to the streaming world, binge everything, have a Sunday afternoon where you just sit in on the couch and watch." And now they're fucking releasing weekly. Like that other show, The Flowers, the Alice one on Amazon, great show, but like weekly. I don't wanna wait weekly. I'm like, I'm in it now. Give
Yeah, I
me
know.
all the shows.
I know.
So
It's
cruel.
so frustrating. It's just like they're trying to be cable and just make sure that you're constantly paying for some sort of subscription because you
Yeah.
can't binge it,
What
right?
a bait and switch.
But they
Like
were doing that Netflix too, right? They were doing that
yeah, I don't
sometimes
think it's just
stuff
Amazon. I'm coming hard against Prime, but I don't think it's just Prime. I think it's
I'm
a few
coming
of
for you.
them. Yeah, but
Coming for you,
it's
friend.
just bullshit. Don't become a streaming agency and then go back to like I get why they're doing it. It makes viewers come back every week, so it gives you subscription numbers stronger
Yeah.
every week, but like middle
Yeah, I
finger
know,
to
but,
you.
like, Brit, they're optimizing for the company, not the
Yeah,
viewer.
but that's gonna shoot him in the ass.
You think so?
Yeah, I think you
You're
always
really set on that, like, that's gonna shoot them in the ass,
oh, I
like,
just don't
they're
like
going
it.
down, they're
Yeah,
going down.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about
Anyways,
that, but
it's
it
getting
is annoying.
heated.
I do wanna binge, and it's annoying, but, I mean, I find myself less and less time to even watch frickin' shows now, so it's like 1 a
But
night
when I
if I'm
do,
lucky.
I'm in it. Like, I won't watch TV all week, but then when I do, it's like I wanna
She
watch
wants
4 or 5 episodes.
She wants it all. She
Yeah,
wants everything. Yeah, I hear you, girl. Like, you sometimes you just want to spend a couple hours and just be by
relax.
yourself and watch all the good stuff, and then you have to switch from one show to the next. It's like change fatigue.
Yeah. Just like it's a descriptor of my life. I'm, like, all in or not in at all. Like, I probably need to find a better balance of,
Yeah,
like you know what I
you,
mean?
you need to get in the middle of the spectrum
Yeah.
somewhere. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we should take these margs out by the pool. I think that's where they're best served and
Okay,
best
well,
enjoyed.
let's do it. To everyone else, have a good one and see you soon.
See you soon. Cheers.
Bye.